Division dispatches.
Hi, my name's Heather Demetrioff. I'm Associate Director with the Manitoba School Boards Association, and I'd like to take a few minutes today to talk to you about the 3 R's. We're not talking about reading and writing and arithmetic in this case. We're talking about the 3 R's of parliamentary procedure as they apply to Manitoba school board members. Those are reconsider, rescind, and reverse. If you have any experience with procedure, most specifically Robert's Rules of Order, you're probably familiar with the first two concepts, reconsider and rescind. They're both ways of bringing back a resolution or a motion before the board so they can take a second look at it, decide if they want to continue down the course of action that they already set for themselves. There's slight variations of the rules that apply to those two. For instance, reconsideration has to be done within a certain time frame, and somebody that voted on the prevailing side or the winning side has to introduce a motion to reconsider. However, as a Manitoba school board member, you don't really have to know about those details because reconsider and rescind don't really apply to your situation. Why? It's because the Public Schools Act actually takes precedence over anything you may have in your own parliamentary procedures or in your parliamentary authority, such as Robert's Rules of Order. And the Public Schools Act has a different set of rules for you. That is reverse. You don't rescind, you don't reconsider, you reverse a decision. You follow the procedures as are set out in the Public Schools Act. Those procedures, which deal with the reversal of a decision, are set out in sections 33.2 and 33.3 of the Public Schools Act. They're very straightforward. 33.2 requires that notice of motion be given from one school board meeting to the next before a decision be reversed, and that a majority of the total number of trustees for the board have to vote in favor of that reversal. That means if you have a 9-member board and there are only 6 members present at the meeting, which would constitute a quorum, you still have to have 5 members vote in favor of reversing that decision. The exception to that rule is contained in 33.3, and that means that if at the same meeting that a board first made a decision, it's having some second thoughts and would like to reverse that decision, it can do so at that same meeting without giving notice, but in that case, it has to be a unanimous decision of the board. If you have 9 members present or 6 members present, they all have to vote in favor of reversing that decision. So to recap, don't worry about reconsideration and rescinding, worry about the provisions of reversal as contained in the Public Schools Act. Now, as straightforward as the provisions are in terms of procedure, there is one question that often arises when school boards are thinking about reversing a decision. And it's the seemingly simple question of what does reverse mean? I'll give you an example. Perhaps a school board has passed a policy whereby there's a public service requirement for high school students. In order to graduate, each student may have had to perform 120 hours of community service over their high school career. To reverse that decision, it would be very straightforward. The school board would simply give notice and pass a motion that they've reversed that decision, they've cancelled that requirement, community service is no longer required. Very straightforward. But what happens if instead of cancelling that requirement, the school board decides instead to increase the requirement from 120 hours to 240 hours? By any dictionary definition, they haven't reversed the decision. Perhaps by a legal standpoint, they haven't reversed the decision, although that's a question best left to the lawyers. But in terms of good board governance, my recommendation to any school board asking would be treat it as if it is a reversal. The reason is really quite simple. Anybody that's interested in the community service component of the high school curriculum thinks that that matter has been determined. They think that it's 120 hours, and as far as they know, it's going to continue to be 120 hours. By giving notice of motion, you're advising anybody that's interested that the question is open for reconsideration. We're going to take another look at it. There may be some changes. It's good governance practice because it lends transparency and accountability to the board deliberations. So, quick recap, reconsideration, rescind, they don't apply to Manitoba school boards for the most part. Reversal, of decision as outlined in the Public Schools Act. Sections 33.2 and 33.3 are in fact the provisions that school boards have to be aware of. And that's it for now. Thanks for tuning in. Session adjourned.